We've talked about all kinds of stuff, some of it serious this week, and it will continue to be so, but something less serious that dealt with Iowa was a very unusual program that aired earlier in the week. I haven't had time to talk about it, but it was one of these ABC programs. I think it's called Wife Swap. And it dealt with an Iowa family. And here is the premise of the program.
Each week from across America, 2 families are chosen. This week, the Hagwoods of Iowa. Barbara and Mike live a frontier lifestyle in preparation for the apocalypse. They think city folk haven't got a hope when it comes to preparing for disaster. Their kids don't go to school but learn about life on their farm. The whole family exists on a raw food diet. Raw chicken, raw beef, and rotting meat. They also believe bacteria is a good thing, so they don't clean their house. And the city-loving Hess-Webb family...
No, it's not hype. Well, the tension in the soundbite is a little bit hype, but Steve Winzenburg, is that hype or is that's reality?
Oh,
right?
That's reality. It's almost hard to believe. What they've done is taken some of the oddest traits of this Hagwood family and magnified them and shown it all across America, and now apparently they are typical Iowans, I guess.
Oh, now, where are they from?
Well, they're from Messina, Iowa.
Okay.
And I've got my little map out here, and it shows that they're just outside Messina, which is kind of in between Atlantic and Creston.
It's pretty remote, even for Iowa standards.
Well, that's they're calling it remote. They said it's desolate. It says at one point in the show, in the desolate wilds of Iowa, far from any city. Well, I looked on the map, and they have a town within a few miles of them there. So,
okay.
They just make it sound like we're out in Montana or something.
Well, it's the middle of winter. There's snow everywhere, and they have this teeny, tiny little old farmhouse. Looks like it maybe even converted schoolhouse or something. I'm not sure what it was, but the premise was they take these groups of rural Iowans and then switch them with was it San Francisco?
Yep, a San Francisco urban couple, a really sharp African-American couple with 2 boys.
Yeah.
Very high culture, high art.
Feng shui to people.
Yes, very well-to-do people, and the mother from San Francisco has to come here to the Iowa farm, and then the raw meat-eating Iowa farm wife has to go out to California.
Now, the reason I'm talking with Steve here this morning, he is a media mogul over at Grandview College. His job is to watch media trends, and would this be in the category of reality TV?
Yes, Wife Swap is one of the many reality shows that are out there, and it's pretty popular. It's not a gigantic hit, but there are 2 types of shows like that. One's called Trading Spouses on Fox, and
right.
Wife Swap is on ABC.
Right. Okay, first off, as a generic Iowan, and I'm not a neatnik, nor do I eat raw meat, or I don't even...
don't?
No, not even sushi, but I'm trying to figure out... Now, they didn't really explain the motivation for the apocalyptic view that this Iowa couple has. It would cause them to go into utter retreat. Now, we understand the Amish motivation. They just want to be away from the rest of us who they consider evil. But what would be the motivation of this couple? Was it religious or just social paranoia?
They implied that it was religious, but they didn't really get into specific beliefs of the couples and the family, so we don't know exactly what religion that we're talking about, but they did mention God a few times within the show. I think that was a little bit of hype at the beginning there, where they were talking about the apocalypse.
Yes.
I think that the couple and the family probably are just storing up some stuff just in case something happens, and maybe they're a little bit more anxious about it than other people.
Well, they intend to be totally self-sufficient. Do you get the idea that do any of them work off the farm or work off the place, or how do they derive enough income even to be subsistence?
Yeah, it didn't say that. I have no idea. It just sounded like they just grow everything themselves, take care of everything themselves. They milk their own cows, and they eat an awful lot of milk-based products, cheese and yogurts. You probably saw on the show they wake everybody up in the middle of the night in order to get a drink of this kind of yogurt-based milky substance, and they believe that you need to have it every 4 to 5 hours in order to stay healthy.
Well, they actually looked healthy.
Oh, they had rosy cheeks.
Yeah.
it was funny to see when the wife went to California and she had to eat a real meal with cooked meat.
Yes.
But all of a sudden she got sick, and then when the San Francisco wife came out here and forced the family to eat cooked meat, they all got sick.
Well, isn't that sort of common though? If you have a radical change of diet,
sure, exactly.
Anybody
it's what you're used to.
Yeah.
But the oddest thing I thought was seeing them eat the raw eggs so much. Yeah, I mean, raw meat. Yeah, that's just plain wacko, I think. But they just sit there. In order to calm down the kid, the boy got really upset at the San Francisco wife coming in and trying to boss them around.
Right.
And so the boy had to calm himself down, so he goes into the kitchen and he takes a little dish with a raw egg in it and gulps it down, and that's supposed to calm his nerves.
Well, it must have. It did. Took a tranquilizer. Raw eggs did it for him. Well, it's amazing. I thought the whole program initially was offensive and insulting to the human species in general, and to Iowans in specific.
Right. It was very caricaturish of Iowans.
But on the other hand, it really did demonstrate to what degree the brain can subject the rest of your anatomy to suggestion, and you can believe just about anything with passion.
Mm-hmm.
And your worldview can be just locked into your life experience, and anything that invites you to leave your experiences or the way you normally think is traumatic.
But I'm somewhat sympathetic with them, because apparently up until about a year or so ago, they were eating normal foods.
Right.
And they had a daughter that had some health problems and found that they needed to get rid of all the additives from their diet.
Right.
And so they ended up finding this raw food nutritionist and started the raw food diet. The whole family bought into it, and they're claiming that they now no longer have to go to a doctor, that they're healthier than ever.
Yes.
And so I'm sympathetic as a parent to that. I certainly understand how you need to try different things. It's just very difficult to see them chopping up raw chicken and just tossing it in the mouth.
Yeah, well, it's raw chicken that they grew.
Yeah.
It wasn't Tyson raw chicken.
Yeah.
It wasn't chemically induced a raw chicken. They grow it themselves. They feed it themselves the same way they milk their own cattle.
But the grossest stuff, did you see on there where they eat the 4-month-old meat?
Yeah.
They put this meat in a jar. Like, they'll take some ground beef, put it in a jar, and then let it sit for 3 or 4 months, and then snack on it.
Well, isn't that isn't that what tenderizing aging beef does? And we pay a lot of money for that in restaurants.
Yeah, that's true. There are some things that people eat that are like that people pay a lot of money for.
And isn't that how the French, why they invented French cooking and French cuisine? All the spices to cover up the taste and stench of rotting meat.
Right.
So anyway, should we be offended by this, or should we be annoyed, or what goes? I guess should we waste any emotion on this at all?
When you say we, are you talking about Iowans?
Generic, then, is because at one level I was kind of offended, another level I said, how can people live like this? And then I watched the other people being just as boneheaded as the Iowans, and the whole episode surrounded the very notion that, well, I know what's best for me,
right,
and therefore I know what's best for you, and if you don't assent, you're stupid.
But it is fun to watch these shows because you're seeing a social experiment go on. And
yes,
you're seeing people being forced to live in a totally different way and expose themselves to a totally different culture.
Right.
And you did see some changes on the show. You saw the Hagewood mother go out to California.
Shaved her legs.
And shaved her legs after 7 years. She hadn't shaved for 7 years. You saw her clip her armpit hair.
Yeah.
That was pretty gross. That was worse than seeing them eat raw meat, I think. But you saw her change, and she came back a changed person in her perspective.
And with clean hair.
And you even saw the California couple change in terms of their attitude. So I think these can be very positive experiences.
Well, there's one part here I just thought was just absolutely an amazing interchange. This is with the dad here who
At
said...
the Hagewoods, where they embrace bacteria, Kim is prepping more raw food, but she's concerned about hygiene.
Do you ever worry about the milk being contaminated?
No.
But it wouldn't hurt to clean the basement, just to make sure that nothing did get into the milk. Like little bleach.
No.
Oh, you guys don't use bleach?
Bleach kills everything.
Yeah.
So you don't have good bacteria.
I love bleach.
Yeah, I'm sure.
What about just hand washing? Because I asked Alicia, because I hadn't washed my hands from coming in milking the cows, and she was like, oh, that's okay.
Do you believe that God would put anything on this earth to hurt us?
Mike's theory on germs and bacteria being fine for his family and his kids, I just think it's wrong, and I think it's a little...
Do you think God would put anything on the planet to hurt us? He must not go outside during the summertime because he must not have mosquitoes in his part of Iowa. He must not have snakes, jiggers, or fleas, or he must, why does he have to retreat?
Well, the irony here, Jan, is that earlier in the show they talked about the fact that they don't drink water. And most of the earth is water. They don't drink water because they believe they're damaged by drinking water, that it actually damages their system. And so they do not drink water. Even though the argument here was, didn't God put these things on earth, the bacteria? And the highlight, I thought, of the whole show was the mother bending down on her knees and licking the floor in the San Francisco house.
Yeah, it says, that won't hurt me, but then you ought to lick the floor. And so she did.
She licked the floor.
It says, I'm not dead yet.
Tastes good.
So... Well, all right. I mean, it used to be when when white guys showed up in this hemisphere for the first time, especially in Central and South America, the diseases the explorers brought to this hemisphere wiped out millions by our presence.
Sure.
And every year, about the first of the school year, when the kids who come to school for the first time and never have been exposed to other people's germs, and their immune systems are pretty much there's just a blank slate, they show up and everybody gets sick and the teacher gets sick, and in some cultures, if some kid gets a chicken pox, everybody used to run over and everybody get the chicken pox at the same time so they get it over with. Right. But these folks here in Iowa, taking that notion, hey, bacteria is not just bad, it's good for you, you got to get toughened up here, let's go eat some dirt.
Yeah, and in theory, they could start an epidemic at some point.
Or they'd be the only ones surviving one.
One thing, you asked me, do I have any concerns? Should we, as a society, have concerns? And the answer is yes, because of the kids that are involved. All
right, hang on to that, because I want to come to that issue. Folks, if you watch this, if you were trapped in that room and you couldn't leave, the TV was on, and you were too weak to go change the channel, that's probably not fair. Several people asked me about this program, so I went out of my way to get a copy of it, and I made myself watch it. Initially, my response was revulsion, and then absolute intrigue. Now, some of you got hooked on that stupid Anna Nicole soap opera. I was totally immune to that. However, this particular episode of Wife Swap has so many different variables to it. I got hooked. Glad it's not a series. Back in a moment is Mickelson Morning. And we were talking with Stephen Winzenburg about this. He's a professor of media stuff over there at Grandview College. He's a frequent host on WHO for a long time, and he's a prolific fellow on the issue, and he watches media trends. Now, is this a trend that's about to expire, or is the reality TV still going strong?
Yeah, it's going strong. I just finished writing a book on reality TV. It's going to come out next year, and I traced it back to when Survivor started in 2000. And, Jan, within a couple of months of when Survivor started, the media were already proclaiming that reality shows were dying. And every year they say the same thing. The trend, it's going away now. No, it's not going away. As a matter of fact, if you look at the top 20 list of TV shows, you see at the very top of the list American Idol and other reality shows. Right. There's only one or two sitcoms in the top 20. So sitcoms are pretty much dead. Reality shows are very much alive.
Well, I would consider this Anna Nicole wall-to-wall coverage for the last 3 days to be a form of reality TV.
But, Jan, you have to remember that the two biggest news stories this last week dealt with reality TV stars. Anna Nicole Smith had her own reality TV show for a couple of years. And Britney Spears had her own reality TV show. And so the two biggest news people this past week are former reality TV stars.
Right.
And this weekend we've got Jennifer Hudson, a former American Idol contestant, up for an Oscar. So reality's not going away, and it's fascinating to watch. It's what used to be the old Jerry Springer type show where, Jerry Springer's still on, but his ratings are way down. But back in the 90s when he was really hot, he'd have odd people on, like people who eat raw meat.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now instead, reality shows have those people on.
It's well, you mentioned about what about the kids. That was a segment that was brought up, and this was a source of continuing friction.
Organized. Why do I have to learn things that I'm not going to use?
The more that you can learn about anything is a benefit.
I don't have any formal education. My education is in what I've learned myself.
How is that the best thing for your child to only expose them to the small environment that they grow up on? With the way she's educating her children, they'll be left.
All right, they'll be left on the farm. All right, so I guess the issue is I didn't think it was legal to not put your kids in a kind of formal or informal education. If you're going to even do a homeschool thing, you're accountable.
Right, but they are accountable. They just had an article in the paper this week that followed up on this. Apparently some of the people who saw the show reported them to the DHS, reported the Hagewoods, and the state investigated and found that they're homeschooling. They're going through a West Des Moines teacher who verifies the work that's being done. But the show sure made it look like those kids aren't doing anything intelligent. They claim they're learning math by counting the eggs that the chickens are laying.
Okay.
When you've got a 16-year-old boy saying that's how he's learning math, that's
right.
Probably not sufficient math. But we have to trust that the state has investigated this by this point, and they are under supervision of a West Des Moines teacher.
Well, let's assume that they weren't, for the sake of argument for a moment. These people are self-supporting. They appear to be healthy. They are seriously socially backward at one level. But so what? I mean, is that anybody else's business?
Well, they decided to go on the reality show, and this made it
that's
our
the other
business.
thing.
Well, okay, here's what happens. There's two ways to get on a reality show. Either you apply, or somebody comes up to you in a bar and says, hey, you'd be great on a reality show. In this case, Wife Swap put out a notice saying they were looking for people who were raw foodists. Apparently there are people around America that are part of this subculture that calls themselves raw foodists, where they just eat raw food.
Right.
And so the Hagewoods applied because the mom, Barb Hagewood, frequently watches Wife Swap. And if you go on the show, you get $20,000. So they applied. They were put on really fast. They just shot this last month. And it was just a bonanza for the Wife Swap people, because this family is just a classic reality TV family where they exploded at the right moments. They showed anger. They showed compassion. They cried.
Okay.
They did everything you're supposed to do on a reality show. So they applied. They put themselves in the public limelight. And then what happens after that is the public reacts negatively. And they didn't probably expect that.
They had to have known that.
Well, my guess is the reason that they went on the show is to promote their raw foodism, hoping to influence other people to eat raw food. And we're not talking about just vegetables. We're talking about sitting down and eating raw chicken, raw ground beef,
Right.
raw eggs.
Yes. Well, okay. Let's talk to some of the folks who are joining us here. And this is Teresa. Good morning. You're talking with Steve Winzenburg. Hi, Teresa.
Hello there.
Hi there. What do you think?
I think, I know the Hagewoods. I've been to their home. I got a tour of their home and their farm, and I had a wonderful time, and Barb showed me how to make fermented food.
Okay.
And, so many things I think were just portrayed wrong, and I'm sure that was done for a reason, for ratings.
Portrayed
they showed
wrong
the
in what?
gloppy milk,
Right.
which is kefir, and so many people drink kefir, they sell it in stores.
I'm not sure what that is.
It's a fermented dairy product. It's like a liquid yogurt.
Oh, okay.
Only
Yeah,
it's got
that's
much
what
more.
they get up in the middle of the night to drink that. The odd part there was that the mom wakes them up in the middle of the night to take another drink of that.
Well, that part I don't know about. That has to do with their specific diet
Right.
and I believe it was getting protein every 5 hours.
And did you learn to use the fermentation process yourself? And is this something you use yourself?
Yes, I do. They showed me how to make sauerkrauts, wonderful sauerkrauts, and chutneys, which are like fermented fruit.
Do you eat
and,
do you eat raw meat?
kombucha. Pardon?
Do you eat the raw meat?
I have, yes.
The raw chicken?
Yes.
And health-wise, you have no trouble?
No trouble at all. I had raw venison sausage yesterday morning for breakfast.
Well, I like my steak rare or medium rare. I have no trouble with it still quivering on the plate. But raw, I don't know if I could take at that stage. I'd have to know a number of things because I'm not sure it's. I'd have to be convinced that that's healthy, or at the very least, I'd have to be convinced it's not harmful.
Well, one thing I do agree with the caller is that you have to take everything that you see on TV with some skepticism, because they're going to edit this together in a way that makes the family look the way the producers want them to look.
Exactly.
Now, the fact is, though, the family does do those things. But in the 2 weeks' time that they shot the Hagewoods, they only put about 20 minutes of the Hagewoods on TV. So they're picking and choosing all those great moments that'll make great TV and really not showing you a fair, full, round view of that family.
Well, so, Teresa, do you agree with that assessment, that you didn't see a fair, rounded view of that family?
Very much so. I mean, when we spent the day there, and this was just some months ago, it was, we had a delightful time, and the kids did not work a 10-hour day. And there's more to counting eggs than you would think. The boy has to, he has to determine how many eggs they're going to need for the year, which means how many chicks will they need. You know, so it goes on and on and on. They have to do the math on all of that.
Okay.
To see how many eggs that they can supply their people or for themselves. But there's a whole lot more to it than just counting eggs.
Well, you know, Rocky ate raw eggs. I mean, he became famous doing that. But when every time you'd see the nutritionist...
Do you want to hold Sylvester Stallone up as a role model?
Well, he won the Vietnam War.
Yeah.
Now, come on now.
Yeah, Jen, I eat raw eggs.
Steve, you're just a profiler. That's what you are. Teresa, how did you get to meet these folks? I mean, how did you make contact? Are you a foodie and similarly afflicted?
Yeah. Well, not afflicted. I was looking for a more healthy diet for my family.
What is the source of their apocalypticism? Why are they so worried that the civil order is going to come unhinged?
You know, I did not get that from them at all.
You know, I might become if things get much worse, I might move in next door. If
You'd be set for life then, because they'd probably be able to provide for you too. But I did not get that from them, and I perceive that's probably for the ratings on the show.
Yeah, got it.
But they are not, to me, they're not the end of the world types. They are more the self-sustaining types.
Yeah. Okay, I got it.
And they were very good at it. That's why I went to learn from them.
All right.
And they were wonderful hosts. Their home was warm and wonderful, and we had a good time.
Well, thank you so much.
And their kids are healthy, and they are healthy.
Teresa, it's nice of you to call. I appreciate it a lot. Steve, do you have a couple more minutes?
Yeah.
All right, we'll continue with Steve Winzenburg. Right now, though, before we get back to our conversation with Steve Winzenburg from Grandview College about the wife swap episode, Steve, you'll be interested in this, too, because of the media and political implications. Jim Boyd has just joined us here in the studio.
Thanks, Jan.
Political news here again, late in the week.
Oh, it always happens, when you least expect it. And this one involves former Governor Tom Vilsack, who we've learned is going to announce later this morning he's dropping his bid for the Democratic presidential nomination. The governor's campaign for president called a news conference for 11 this morning here in Des Moines, and we'll get the who's, what's, when's, where's, and why's.
I was surprised, actually, because I thought he was just getting rolling. I thought he would at least survive the first round of debates.
I'm guessing, and this is purely speculation on my part. I shouldn't do this as a journalist, but, everybody else does these days, so why not? But it's probably the money issue.
Yep.
I mean, this is going to be such a expensive presidential campaign, and Governor Vilsack, well, he's well known around these parts. They don't have a clue who he is.
He went on all the national TV programs, got lots of exposure. I mean, a whole bunch of it. He was on with the Daily program.
But Jan, that exposure wasn't necessarily good. He was on the Tonight Show and the Daily Show, and in both cases, they really made fun of him and made fun of his background, made fun of Iowa. They made him look like a hick.
Do you think so?
I sure do. I when I watched the Tonight Show with him on it, I thought this is embarrassing, and he didn't even get the joke. He was trying to use it to push his platform and do his little political statements, and Jay Leno was just essentially saying to him, "Hey, buddy, you haven't got a chance. Why are you even in this race?"
And you say you don't think he was connected even with his enough with the presence of his that status, that part of that conversation. He didn't even attach himself to the moment.
I think Vilsack saw these national shows as great opportunities to get FaceTime and get his message out, but he doesn't realize that these shows were not having him on because they were taking him seriously. They were having him on because they thought he was kind of a joke. That's why you go on The Daily Show, by the way.
Yes, or to repair the damage of previous things.
Yes, that's right.
I thought he did well on The Daily Show.
Well, I thought he did well, but again, they're not having him on because they take him seriously as a candidate. That's my point.
But is there any such thing as bad publicity as long as you show up and do well?
Yes, there is such thing as bad publicity.
Well, hey, we caught this guy in a compromising position is bad publicity.
I would even almost argue that the appearances like he had on The Tonight Show actually harmed him in the long run because it was so obvious Leno was not taking him seriously and they were making fun of him. So I think it would have been smarter to go on a much more serious show. And I know he made some serious national appearances like with George Stephanopoulos and other shows like that.
Right.
And those shows are much more beneficial in terms of your credibility.
Okay. So they self-destructed or just could not, anybody from Iowa that's not known has no potential? This was unearned status to begin with because
I think it's what you just said. It gets down to money. He's got to have money, and in this case, man, look who he's running against. He's going to have a tough time raising any more money.
Okay, very interesting. Hey, thank you, Jim. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem.
All right, so our Governor Vilsack is no longer a contender, and he'll come back to Iowa and do mischief back here. Yeah, he's going to assume a position at Drake, I think, and other stuff.
Weren't those kind of indicators, though, Jan? He already had started. He joined a board. He said he was going to teach at Drake Law School. I mean, weren't those indicators that he pretty much knew he was going to have to give up pretty soon?
But advancing your bones in the political sphere means you are out there, you got your name in the hopper, and at least he will be an asterisk. If there is another Democratic administration, he'll be able to had his big toe in the administrative process later if he has earned any credibility.
Yeah, that could be. It could be that he's just trying to toss his name in the ring for whoever does get elected president. If they're a Democrat, maybe he could have a position there. But my perspective is sometimes these candidates don't realize that people are laughing at them. And I've lived in 7 states. All I can tell you is people in Iowa may take Vilsack seriously. People in other states go, who?
Okay, but... you
really need other state perspective. One of my things that I try to teach my students is get out and see how they report news elsewhere and how people elsewhere see Iowa. And we know from the coverage of the caucuses that they'll come and pose their anchors in front of a barn and treat it. We're in Des Moines and they've got a barn in the background. But people's perspective is very different elsewhere of Iowa.
But they will contrive that, though. See, that's one of the things that I know exactly what you mean. I stood downtown the convention center in the last election cycle during the caucuses where all the talking heads were here. And an ABC News producer literally was trying to create a Norman Rockwell moment and using graphics out of a book as he faded from a coffee shop, some seasoned citizens in a rural coffee shop, pretending that represents anything worth representing here in Iowa, and with some soft hick music going on in the background. And I just kind of muttered to myself, Iowans really hate that stuff. And the guy was standing behind me. I didn't know he was standing behind me. And he said, I wish you would let my piece run before you start ripping it apart. I said, whoops, sorry. But if what you're saying is correct, then this thing about the wife swap is far more damaging to the state of Iowa than I imagined.
Well, did you listen carefully, like, to the music they played whenever they got to the Iowa scene? It was Wild Wild West music. It was hick. They just portrayed people as being out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, we are in the middle of nowhere.
No, we're not. No, I used to live in Bismarck, North Dakota. That's the middle of nowhere.
Well, that's we're the suburbs of nowhere.
We're on the edge of nowhere. There is a difference.
I've worked all over the country here, and really there's precious little difference when you get right down to it between where we are and any place else. We just have less problems than every place else. We concentrate on them more than anybody else does, and we whine about them, but there's a good reason why people who come here don't want to leave.
Well, that woman, when she came from San Francisco, she made that line about how I expected Iowa's not a big fashion capital. There were just these little disses here and there, you know, putting down Iowa, miles from the nearest city, that type of thing. And I thought it was a very stereotyped portrayal of the state.
I don't think we can fix that. However, this certainly doesn't sound like it helped. This is Dan. Thank you for joining us. Good morning.
Good morning, Dan.
Hi.
I know, just a couple comments. I know the Hegwoods not real well, but I know them. In fact, I buy all my beef from them, and I do cook it. I cook it before I eat it. So they have outstanding grass-fed beef, some of the best. Anyway.
That would be what they call organically grown? Is that how they advertise it? Is that how they do that?
Organically grown, grass-fed beef. I buy, you know, like a split half every fall, and just very satisfied with that. And they bought some products from me. I've been on they're extremely intelligent people. They are not buffoons. They are not hicks. But I know I've been on the news a few times with the product I sell. And I know that the news can make you look like whatever they want you to look like.
That's right.
They'll come out to my place for an hour, film me, talking and doing things with my product, and 2 minutes of it gets on the news, and you know they make it look like they want to look. So
right.
It does not surprise me that they made them. And I did not see the episode, but it doesn't surprise me that they made them look like they're out there, because that's what the media does. You know, it's like. You know, that's what they're good at doing. So.
Well, they can. If they have a motivation or if they have a pre-existing storyline, they will extract exactly what they need to come to that conclusion.
Right.
But that's not journalism.
No.
But this episode of, quote, reality TV is not even pretending to be journalism, no?
Well, you know, I've read interviews with people that have been on Survivor, too, and they say, look, they made me out to be a villain, or they made me out to be a dumb blonde, or they made me out to be whatever.
Right.
You know, when they're filming you for months and months or weeks and weeks, and they only, and in an hour show, you know, a snippet of this and that gets on the TV. Like I read in the paper that, you know, the boy does his math by counting eggs. Well, come on. He was probably making a joke, you know. I mean, gee whiz.
All right, got it. Hey, thank you, Dan. I appreciate it.
The point here, Jan, is that these people signed up for the show. They signed a gigantic contract. The Survivor contract is 83 pages. They know when they're signing up for that show that the producers can spin this and make them look any way they can.
You become the product in a commodity.
Yes, you know that. And the American Idol people are perfect examples. People were complaining about how Simon was treating people and how mean they are.
Yeah.
All of the contestants say, hey, we signed a contract saying the producers can make us look bad.
All right, brief timeout. Last one. Steve Winzenburg is here. We're just trying to figure out where we fit in the great scheme of things, and turns out we may not. Steve Winzenburg from Grandview College is on our Newsmaker line, observes reality TV for a living, and about a whole bunch of media forms. Reality TV being the hottest one at the moment. Wife swap is what we've been discussing, and the reason for that is it had an Iowa connection that's just absolutely alluring, intriguing, and many people think insulting. Glenda, I think you're in that category, aren't you?
I certainly am, Jan and Steve. Good morning.
Hi.
I tell you what. I believe that the Hegwood family put Iowa back 3,000 years. And you know what? We really deserve to show the San Francisco family the real way of life in Iowa.
That's a good point.
And you know what? I feel terrible about it. And you know what? No wonder everybody thinks we're hicks. Because you know what? That's exactly the way they live. And I'm very ashamed. And I'll tell you what, I live in the town. But let me tell you what, if I'm so upset and outraged at this, I can't imagine what the rural farm family feels.
Now, I'm wondering, so let's take Linda's object seriously. Steve, is there any way, would it be practical, even smart, or I think it might be kind of an interesting thing, just to offer that San Francisco family a week here during the spring? Not now. Sometime the year when it's nice and green and lush, or late autumn, that they could come here and we could, in a quiet way,
quiet
publicity.
I think that's a great idea, because they're very cultured, and I think they need to see that we do have culture here.
And they look like a great family, too.
Yeah, I would also say the Hegwoods look like a great family, too, and the caller has to realize all we're seeing is an edited down version of 2 weeks. And so we're barely seeing a sliver of what happened in that 2 weeks.
Yes.
So the producers can twist this how they want. But the fact is, when you see this rural family with filth everywhere and eating raw chicken, it does look badly upon our state.
All right, that's an excellent idea, Glenda.
Ah, that is a great idea.
Well, the only thing about it is you cannot lick a floor and make it look like something else.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, she did it.
Licking a floor is licking a floor, and especially not washing your hands.
Wait a minute. Now, there are people, and you and I are both know that they have floors clean enough that you can eat off it. These people are not on that list. You know, go over to Bonnie's house, for instance. She won't even let her cat walk on the floor, for Pete's sake.
My guess is the Hagwoods regret this. My guess is if they had to do it over, they wouldn't do the show.
Really?
Yep, because I think it was edited to make them look a way that they're not.
That would be interesting just to ask them that. Hey, thank you, Steve. I really appreciate
Thanks,
your
Dan.
expertise.
Great talking to you.
You betcha.